All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to the CX Chronicles podcast. Super excited. We have Mr. Nate Joens from Structurally joining us today. Nate, say hello to the CX Nation, my friend.
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here.
So, guys, this is going to be a fun episode today. Nate is a part of a team that's building a really, really cool product. The company's Structurally, and it's an AI assistant that is helping not only sales and marketing, but frankly, a number of other parts of your business. So Nate's going to be here today to tell the story. Totally different type of experience curation. But Nate, why don't you just jump right into today's episode? Give the CX Nation a couple-minute elevator pitch in terms of just how you got into this whole space and how you and the team at Structurally came to building the super cool product.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everyone. Really glad to be here again. I really, this is my first job. This is, I got my start right out of college, in just talking to a pretty hefty amount of potential users that I didn't know at the time, to figure out what their issues were. It happened to be that market that we did a ridiculous amount of customer discovery in was real estate. We talked to every realtor under the sun that we could get to answer our phone calls, and they love answering phone calls because that's what they do in the first place.
That's right.
So that was pretty easy. And we actually, before, we even had a product we had the idea kind of that we landed on, which is, conversational AI to follow up, nurture, and qualify their leads. We actually took just myself and my co-founder out to some of the big industry conferences in real estate. It's called like Inman News and National Association of Realtors. Set up a booth and just kind of picked everyone off the floor and picked their brain. And it was just, probably 1,000 conversations over those two events alone. And it just validated the idea. It was a perfect way, I think, that anyone listening, if you're validating a brand new idea, a new product line, just a hunch that you have, a hypothesis, go out, kind of be present in the market. Even if you don't have the product, just being at those conferences, being present, getting your name out there and really just testing it like live, face-to-face, if possible, was a huge learning curve for us. And fast forward to today, validated that idea, built a strong team in the conversational AI space with machine learning and AI background, and have solved this problem in real estate and are continuing to do so for all sales and marketing folks.
I love it. So Nate, first things first, when we were chatting last week, man, I remember Nate telling me exactly what he just told you folks about, like getting hyper focused with finding not only one, but multiple places where a bunch of industry experts are hanging out, are sharing stories, are probably a little bit more open and willing to kind of just talk about some of their pains or some of their challenges or some of the things that they'd be willing to spend money on, guys. It's amazing how many companies that are really kind of trying to get their own bonfire started. They don't just stop and ask the market, hey, what are you guys going to spend your money on this year? And that simple type of question, not only is it a validator, but Nate, I got to imagine you and the team probably heard things that you were, number one, you probably heard a ton of things that you were super, super expecting to hear. You knew that there was going to be the big three or whatever, but then you guys probably heard a bunch of different things that you never even thought about that became some of today's Structurally features and some of its product value adds that people, come to love and come to really value and continue to use the product on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the number one learning that we're still hearing and still figuring out, and that is just true for the entire conversational AI and chatbot space that's very related to user experience, is just simply that chatbots kind of suck, being honest. Right. That experience cannot happen in really high ticket markets, industries like real estate. When you're buying a house, it's a big life event. You're going through something big. You're getting a new job. You might be going through a divorce. You might be selling because there was a death. Something big is happening. It's not a cheap purchase either. You're going to spend a lot of money. So if you're talking to AI or anyone, a human even, just if you're talking to someone or something and they're not listening to you, they don't really care about you, they're not providing you the information or service that you need, they're going to quickly go somewhere else. There's a million realtors out there in the country. There's plenty of fish in the sea. They'll go to the next person down the line and they'll be happy to take their commission. So when we talk to customers up front, that was first and foremost in their brain. We cannot put AI in front of my most valuable asset, leads, contacts, my potential customers. That's going to screw up my conversations. So we took a really strategic approach first to say, we're going to build this conversational AI that is indistinguishable from human, because it has to. That's just simple table stakes for an industry like this. And I think that's where, UX wise, like CX wise, that's where we've really differentiated ourselves in our go-to-market strategy now. Is like, that was not the easy path. Building lifelike AI is not easy. That kind of, there was a big develop R&D curve. There was a big learning curve to get those conversations perfect, and we're still perfecting them. But it's really set us up for a really, more sustainable product and company as a whole.
That makes sense. I think, Nate, a couple of things. Just number one, as more and more consumers and as more and more businesses have gotten comfortable with, number one, just chat as a whole, right? And really solidifying this medium as a place where, look, the reality is there's a bunch of people in the modern world that if they can get a quick answer on chat and they can avoid the whole phone call experience or avoid the email experience, or maybe they don't have to go to somebody's social page just because they need a quick answer, and instead they can just chat it out. That's huge. Number one, that's huge. But number two, I think we were talking about this the other day, man. Like, you also have varying levels of comfortability with consumers today. And we were joking kind of about our parents a little bit, like maybe not knowing that, like, I was chatting with a human. No, maybe not. This probably wasn't a human. It's probably a human that built an algorithmic search that gives you answers and tees up what they need, what information they need to. But I would love to kind of understand, like, as you guys have been building structurally, I got to imagine that you've learned a bunch of different things around really what maybe the top three important areas are. For number one, some of the customers that you guys are working with structurally who need to be able to chat with their customers. But number two, what are some of the things that you've learned from consumer expectations around chat? You spend like a minute or two just talking about like 2 or 3 big areas for our listeners to think about if they're injecting or implementing chat into their ground game moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say first and foremost, our product really focuses on text messaging and email too. We do offer chat, but we see kind of a mix of both, really focused on texting. And the way that works is we integrate with like forms and your existing database of leads who might have emails, or phone numbers, or both, mix of both. And we reach out to them over those channels kind of immediately, okay, whether maybe they're old leads that have gone like dormant or cold, or new leads who just, downloaded content, or just requested more information on a property, or just requested more information in general. We'll immediately reach out to them, follow up. The beauty of those channels, text and email, versus something like chat, there's kind of pros and cons of all. The beauty of the text and the email is you can follow up with them for a long period of time. Most salespeople, most marketing people give up after the 6th attempt to reach someone. We follow up 52 times over a year. We're a little aggressive, but that's because most salespeople are way under aggressive. They just give up way too early. And that's, the key ingredients, sales 101, are you have to send the right message, a relevant message, to a customer at the right time. And you just never know when that right time is going to be, especially in something like real estate or in any buyer's journey. Something in their life might change. Someone might go through a divorce. You send them a message at the right time. Great. I'm glad you reached out. I really need to move. Someone in a, B2B buyer scenario. Yeah, just unlocked my budget. Let's go. You never know when those things are going to happen. So you really need that long-term follow-up. So I think that's like first and foremost is something to consider. The one thing I will also say is if you aren't texting leads, that's a huge missed opportunity. Even in, even in the B2B world, in any world, texting is a untapped opportunity for most consumers. Luckily in real estate, texting is kind of like the de facto communication channel. Everyone is texting their realtor. It's just more convenient. We did an entire podcast on dials are dying. And I still believe that, especially today. we're ignoring those spam phone calls more than
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
so that you get a phone call, you're like, there's no way I'd answer that in my life.
It's so true. And it literally always happens. Like it happens when you're typically doing other either income producing activities, whether it's prospecting, whether it is actually doing the phone calls for people that you already did set up some type of offline engagement for. And they always
Yep.
come at the most unopportune times. The last thing is just like modern consumers want to be able to almost tee these things up, schedule these types of conversations in a way when like they're ready to talk about it. And modern
Yeah.
sellers got to be thinking about that. That's the way that the modern day consumer needs to be thinking about it. So like something that you got to be aware of with your growing business for sure.
100%. And just on the texting or the email, correspondence, our conversations always tee up a phone call, because you're much more likely to answer a phone call with someone you've been having a texting conversation with, versus just a straight cold call. So, it's all about thinking through, like you said, that consumer expectation. What would you answer a cold call? No, none of us do. None of us. It's increasingly dying. So, just like you said, you want to set up those next steps in a way that's convenient for them.
Big time, big time. Nate, I would love for you to jump into the first CX pillar of team. Why don't you spend a couple minutes talking about how you and the gang over at Structurally really kind of started piecing together and building out your team as you started finding new customers, finding different ICPs that were really, really ripe for Structurally. Talk about the team aspect.
Yeah. So on the R&D side, we kind of talked about it, like huge focus on machine learning and AI to make the conversation feel lifelike. That's not an understatement by any means. It's what we do. 99.9% of our conversations we've seen consumers believe they're talking to a human. So that's kind of where, that's what we're selling too, is the human-like aspect. And we just have a very small sales and marketing team, in a somewhat larger CS team, who's really focused on, first and foremost, bringing in the leads that you or our customers want to enroll in Structurally. They want to re-engage, and it can be anything under the sun. Like I mentioned, it could be new leads, old leads, anything in between. So the CS responsibility is to get those lead sources integrated first and foremost, and or their CRM. That's number one and number two topmost priorities in onboarding. So throughout the entire customer journey, our sales and marketing team is leading with integrations, selling integrations. Integrations are first and foremost extremely important to what we do. And that entire pillar kind of value prop plays through as soon as they're passed off to our CS team, who's doing the onboarding and maintenance, because that's usually where pretty much the majority of all of our consumer facing sales, marketing, positioning, CS, chat, everything that we're talking to our customers about is, am I talking to the right leads? How am I getting the leads? And are the scripts, are the conversations, lifelike? Can there be tweaks to make them better?
That makes a ton of sense. And I think like if it depends, it's almost like any product or any service, you just nailed it, Nate. It's like that point of onboarding or that point of like, all right, the sales and the marketing has worked. They see that there's value. They see that there's a possible connection. They see that there is all of this opportunity that pain can be eliminated or pain can be mitigated, right? All those fun things. But man, until you actually get somebody on board, they understand how to use the product, utilize the product. They understand whether or not it's what they actually thought the granular pain points that they were going to have will be solved. That's where
Yep.
you can literally tee up an account for like long-term success. You can retain them for the long haul. Or the other thought is there's a lot of companies out there that a big part of what onboarding does is you almost sift out of the pipeline which accounts or which new customers came through that actually aren't perfectly qualified and they're
Right.
not perfectly ripe. And guys, this happens in every one of our pipelines. You're lying if you don't say it, but it happens where you think that you can kind of have this perfect partnership. Then once you get to the point of onboarding, you see, wait a minute, this might not be a dream. And frankly, oftentimes finding that earlier is still a win for both parties, because number one, then the
Mhm.
customer doesn't feel like they get completely inundated with investing and teaching their entire team, training their entire customer, like making this thing a whole intricate part of their day to day when they're not even going to be using it in 30, 60, or 90 days. And then on our side, right, as business, as customer focused business leaders, well, we're finding out really quickly which folks are probably never going to elevate or graduate or perform their way into the 20% of customers that are bringing 80% of our sales. And
Mhm.
then you're kind of sort of also really doing a good job of operationally smoothing to figure out where you should spend your precious resources. So all great stuff there, Nate.
I think that's huge. The whole like ICP thing is something that we've gone through very recently as a customer journey team. Was, are we actually bringing in the right customers?
Yeah.
And it was like we redid our entire lead scoring methodology. We went through a process where we ranked all of our existing customers like A, B, C, D.
Yep.
And then every single time we onboard a new customer, we give them a label, A, B, C, D.
Yep.
There's a direct correlation between their lead score when they come in, when they sign up, to their CS score, to their
Yep.
account score, to how long they're with us. And we noticed that really early on. So we've been much more select about who we're bringing on as customers, because it's important to make sure that fit is right. And a lot of what onboarding that we focus on is getting them to their aha moment. That's a pretty common term that I think all of us are familiar with, but we've found that our aha moment is typically after about 3 months of using our product, because that gives them enough time to queue up a bunch of leads, get them kind of in the process and a bunch of follow-up, and actually see a very lifelike conversation. The number one aha moment where the light bulb clicks that we've talked to customers about time and time again is, I know Structurally is a great fit when I see a very great human-like conversation. And we see about after month 3, they've had enough leads come through and enough leads talk to our AI that there's going to be that one or few golden nuggets in there.
Yep.
And so it's really about trying to get to that moment as quick as possible after onboarding.
Absolutely, man. Any pipeline, any sales org, it's like your ability to rip through a huge number to find those couple nuggets. That's what it's all about, man. That's the game that we're playing. But Nate, I would love to jump into the second CX pillar of tools. You guys work with a bunch of different customers. You're working primarily with real estate, mortgage, leasing providers. I know you have other customers too, but I'd love for you to spend a couple minutes talking about tools. I guess 2 ways of thinking about this. Number one, I'd love to just kind of hear how you and the team at Structurally has gone about building its own toolkit as you guys have grown, as you've expanded. But then I got to imagine too, you're in a business where you're working with a bunch of customers that come with their own set of tools. So what does that look like? And spend some time talking about some of the things that you guys have learned as you've been building Structurally, and how you have to kind of work with your customers and work with the different tool sets.
Yeah. First and foremost, I'll say it again, it's CRMs. That was we needed a tool across the customer journey that fit all parts of the customer journey: marketing, sales, success, so they could speak the same language, have relevant information about their contact, and do their job without the CRM getting in the way. So we went with HubSpot, and that gives us a look across the entire customer journey really easily.
Yep.
And the kind of beauty of that too, I'll let everyone in on a secret. We use our own product to sell our product. So that was a huge realization. And it integrates directly into our CRM. We actually gave our product a name, a user seat in HubSpot. Her name is Emma, and she literally acts like an SDR or AE on our team. And so we think of our tool, our product, as a sales and marketing tool for ourselves as well, that lives and breathes in HubSpot just the same as any other team member would. That's what we're also selling to our customers. That's how we sell it to our customers. We say, look, you're hiring an AI assistant that's going to live and breathe on your team, just like if you were to hire a real inside sales agent.
Yep.
And we teach the same thing. You should plug them into your CRM just like they're a user. So some people will, there are a lot of very niche, real estate specific CRMs tool wise that we integrate with.
Okay.
And so, but it's the same setup. They're either usually setting up their AI as another member of their team. They're assigning it leads. That's what enrolls those leads into Structurally.
Yep.
And the entire conversation is synced back to the lead profile in real time, where they can actually take over the conversation in real time from there as well. And their entire team is visible. They can see that conversation. So that is just, first and foremost, how we just best practices how we sell our product, and tool wise, just how we think about how we fit into our stack and what we've built. We're eating our own dog food as well from there.
I like it. I think, hearing you say that, it makes me think there is so many different business owners and so many different customer focused business leaders out there, where if they had the option of being able to have more of a blended view, maybe it's like for specific asks or specific activities, they do want human-based involvement versus other things where once they find out a perfect rhythm or a perfect process or a perfect cadence that they need to follow. And frankly, humans want to be creative. Humans want to kind of change things around. Humans want to, even though a cadence is just got you, every time you hit 10 messages, you get 5 meetings. Humans can't help it. They're going to still play around with that 50% booking rate, and they're going to try something different. And then all of a sudden you go from getting 5 out of 10 meetings booked to 2 out of, right? And so the ability to have like this AI assistant is where for specific parts of your process, your game, where you already know that they're crystallized and like, I just need you to keep doing this exact same thing because that's what works and that's what yields a specific conversion. Man, that's where this technology comes into play and really kind of makes it a game changer. The other thing too is like, then you're playing to this, like, let's go with this idea of this blended approach. Then you're also starting to break up some of the tasks or break up some of the things that maybe to a human is mundane or to a human is repetitive, and then they begin to lose energy, lose steam, also sometimes lose their ability to like perform on it. Have technology aid you with that. And I think that that's all like exactly the types of things that some of our listeners need to be thinking about as they're building their modern day team. So I love that. Nate, I'd love to, you already kind of hit on this a little bit, but let's jump into the third pillar of process. So a couple things. Number one, it took you guys many years to kind of build out and figure out exactly what these processes were going to look like. But I'd love to just kind of hear for a couple minutes, you tell us a little bit about what were some of the things that you guys had to do when it came to building the process, not only for Structurally to work, but then again, I imagine you guys have to manage processes with your customers to make sure that whatever playbooks or whatever SOPs or whatever, procedures they have running their day to day fits inside of what the Structurally tool can offer. Can you spend some time talking about process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but when we typically go through a process where an account gets a demo, we pass it off to CS if they're interested and they get an onboarding, but it's much more in depth than that. We always start with our ideal customer profile, our ICP.
Yep.
If that account that comes through downloading an ebook or a webinar or something doesn't match any sort of our ICP, we weed them out pretty quickly. So I think that's been a huge learning experience for us. Whereas like in Structurally's past, we were kind of just like, whatever, you have a heartbeat, you breathe, you're fine. You're a good customer for us.
Yeah, right.
And that just didn't work. It put so much strain on the process, on the system across the board, where CS is now wasting their time trying to make a customer fit that will never fit.
Yep.
And that was a huge learning experience and still is. And I think a lot of it comes down to, doing lead scoring in some capacity up front. So you're not wasting time on a demo. Your salespeople who are commission based, they're not wasting time on someone they can never sell. And B, that person doesn't actually ever sign up and take a bunch of our CS time. And if they do, make sure that when they get onboarded, they're given a rating of some kind as well, so that, on the other side, we have a new QBR process, quarterly business review process, where our CS team is running through that list A to D, I think, top to bottom, and calling on those accounts and making sure that every quarter, everything's good, checking in on their account setup, their just, satisfaction and everything like that. So that's like at a very minimum process wise, like how we're thinking about things internally. From our customers' point of view, I would say that a lot of their process, real estate is kind of a interesting industry. I would say it's much more like lead generation, lead purchase
Yep.
oriented than
Yep.
potentially other markets. There are a million lead companies in real estate. Most every business in that industry just buys a subscription based number of leads a month. They can go
Okay.
buy 50 leads a month for $500 or
Yep.
so.
Yep.
And so it's much more, they're all that lead volume will always be there. So they need to think about how they can sift through those leads really quickly, because in real estate and other industries, you get a ton of tire kickers.
Yep.
Everyone loves looking at real estate. So, a majority of those leads are going to be crap. So you have to have a process to work through those leads, because the unspoken truth about that is, this is probably true in every business, your lead follow-up compounds.
Yep.
If you get 500 leads this month, 500 the next month, 500 the next month, you have 1,500 leads in your pipeline from months past, and that grows exponentially. And everyone forgets about that middle part of the funnel where leads go to die, to be honest. Everyone's so excited about the new shiny lead. That's just, all the new hot, fresh leads are going to be where they focus all their time. But we always talk about it's kind of a thought experiment. What if you stop paying for leads, even in any industry? What if you turned off your ads? What if you stopped doing webinars? What if you stopped doing ebook content, things like that, and just focused on everyone who's in your pipeline currently? That is a huge opportunity that not only our product focuses on, but businesses and customers that we work with, and that we, again, eat our own dog food. Structurally does that all the time, where we just say, we're not going to run the ads this month. We have enough people in our database and we're going to go after them, sometimes using our own product, sometimes using our sales reps, et cetera. And I think that's a huge part of the process that we've learned to focus in on across our customers and ourselves too.
That's such a good point, Nate, that everybody listening, major takeaway from this episode right there. Nate just nailed it, which is like, what's the point of going after and putting all the energy, all the time? The other thing too, the CAC, right? There's acquisition costs involved in any business going out and finding 1,500 leads, whether it's the bundled leads that Nate's talking about, whether it's your SDR or your BDR that you had to train them, you had to prime them, you have to employ them, you need to help teach, coach, support them how to like directionally find the right ICPs every week. And let's call it what it is, guys. Most of the folks in this show, that stuff changes every week. All the businesses that we're building here, these are businesses that are blowing up. These are businesses that are, experiencing growth, experiencing scale. And if you're not always kind of looking for those directional wins, that's a major miss. I think the other thing too is just, it's a great point. It's almost like a good challenge for everyone listening today is like, even just looking back over the last 30, 60, 90, Nate just nailed it, which is like, how many ICPs are sitting there that you haven't even poked or touched or sent that third or fourth or 50-second message, as Nate called out earlier? But that's such a good point. It's like a starting point. It's almost the same way that in customer success, we think about, a healthy customer portfolio. It's not one of size. It's one of engaged, repeat, month over month over month using customers, right? Because number one, you're building an army of promoters. These are guys and gals that absolutely love working with the business, working with the brand, working with the product and service. But number two, when you start getting into a business economics perspective, you're not wasting CAC. You're not wasting the addition of another salesperson who's just going to go kind of build the same inefficient portfolio or the inefficient pipeline. Instead, you're trying to think about how to prime this stuff up and really optimize it before that scale ensues, before you start blowing up the numbers. So all awesome stuff here, Nate. I'd love to jump into the fourth and final CX pillar, feedback. So you've already hit on this. There's a bunch of different ideas and a bunch of different things that you're kind of seeing around how to leverage customer feedback and how to leverage your employee feedback. But spend a couple minutes talking about what are some of the things that structurally is done as you guys have grown your business to leverage your customer and your employee feedback.
Yeah. I think we're in a very unique position where everyone that uses our product uses it slightly different, because everyone has an opinion on how they talk to their customers. everyone is right. They're not wrong. Our product is fully customizable. You can customize the follow-up cadences and the scripts, which it opens up so much opportunity to listen to feedback, because everyone's like, even think about like COVID times. We had to switch our scripts to be, we would never have thought that in a million years, to be more like, empathetic, friendly. And we went through an entire process, last year, where everyone of our customers was like, I can't do this. You guys need to change your scripts, or you need to help me do it, to say, especially like in real estate too, like there were markets you couldn't show a house in person.
Yeah.
So we had to shift all of our scripts to virtual showings. Huge undertaking, to be able to listen and get, that wasn't in every market. So we had to make a fine balance, where some people were like, my market's fine, we're still doing showings. Other people were like, no, only virtual. Yep. And now we're kind of going through that process again, where it's like things are slightly starting to shift back to normal, and more people are doing in-person showings and things like that. But not everyone is. Yeah. Everyone has an opinion on this exact subject, where we took a stance where our scripts were going to be more empathetic. We were going to say, hey, lots of craziness going on right now. Let us know how we can help. Some people still like that. Some people don't. So we're trying to balance this really fine line between our internal employees, who are like, I'm getting so much, opinionative feedback from these customers who are like, these scripts have got to go. We're going back to normal. And then on the other side, they're like, my market still doesn't allow in-person showings, so you need to still support those. So we're building this process right now where we're kind of supporting multiple versions of our scripting, our pre-built default scripting, that are more, virtual focused and less virtual focused, kind of like new world and old world from 2020 and beyond. So I think that's just one way that we've thought about feedback. There's no right answer in a situation like that. And you have to live with that. I'm not right just because it's the way that I want it. One brokerage might be right. The other brokerage might be right. We're all right. It's just you need to set up your product in a way that can be generalized, is what we've learned, that it can support multiple people's process and opinion and thoughts, and it's built for them.
Yep. Couldn't agree more, man. I think it's super well said. And then on top of it, you're spot on. This is not going to change. This new idea of like the ability to be hybrid is probably going to be the new middle, if you will, because you're going to have to be flexible. You're going to have to be able to make adjustments. There's going to be business. There's already countless businesses out there just even thinking about what the new expectation is on the flexibilities. Some companies are talking about minimum 2 days in, 3 days remote. Yep. Some companies are the flip of that, 3 days remote, only 2 days you got to come in to work with your team. And then you're going to have to think about all the complexities and logistics of how the hell that's going to work, which is going to be another fun challenge. But when you get down to brass tacks with tools and with SaaS and with software that is helping to drive these businesses, that flexibility, you're spot on, Nate. That need for flex and that need for just companies to be able to have some pliableness to how they're using these tools, that's not going away. That, if anything, that's here to stay, and that's going to become a new expectation on the consumer side for sure.
Yeah, we probably all on this show, as business owners, business operators, anything in between, have probably been put to the test like we never have before in the last year, seeing new use cases of our product that we would have never imagined. And so I think that not only was that great for innovation, but it was great for doing what, exactly you just said, thinking about how we all can generalize our product more so it can fit more use cases and make it feel like it was built for them. So I think that's been a really fun challenge for the last year, from just a business and innovation perspective. And I think that it's not going to go away anytime soon too.
Yep, totally agree. Nate Joens, this is awesome. Before we wind down today's episode, I want to make sure that you let the CX Nation know, where can people find out more about you, sir? And where can people learn more about Structurally?
Yeah, I always like to put my money where my mouth is. A lot of people hear, AI, this, AI that. But like I said, that experience has typically been pretty bad. I'll be honest with you. And I think we talked about that. We realized that. So if you want to test the AI yourself, we love that. You can go to testyouraiassistant.com and literally try it yourself. I only ask that you try and be somewhat realistic. Sometimes people will, ask it on a date and some kind of creepy things, but try and be somewhat realistic. But we want you to try and push it to the test, but be a little honest with it. So we love seeing those conversations. It's a great way if you just want to prove me wrong, I guess, if you will, or prove me right. So I think that's the best way to get in touch with us, testyouraiassistant.com. And if you got any more, information, itches that you need scratched, you can go to structurally.com and check out all our resources too.
I love it. Well, Nate, look, this has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Best of luck to you and the team at Structurally, my friend. And best of luck with this new wild world that we're all moving forward into, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate it. This was great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nate.
Yep.